Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Kyle Betts. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we take a look back at our stories from our sustainability team, from trying to mitigate wildfires to finding simple ways to save water.
There are a number of wildfires burning across the state. New wildfire restrictions were put in place late last week as tourists flocked to the high country, but we are not the only ones who are taking wildfire precautions. Cronkite News reporter Jessica Herrera explains what utility companies are doing to reduce the risk of fires this summer.
Seasonal wildfire restrictions in Arizona are in place, and utility companies are finding new ways to keep our forests safe.
It is becoming another tool in our toolbox for early notification.
Floyd Harden, the fire management officer with SRP, says they are working with SmokeD to create and test wildfire detection systems.
It's not putting fires out, but it is giving us the ability ultimately to have an early notification and also share that with our partners.
The Smoke Detector pilot project places cameras and smoke detectors on utility towers across the state. The technology provides an early warning system if wildfires occur near the utility's transmission line towers.
It sends an alert. It works off of AI, artificial intelligence, so it takes the image and it's processing it on the back end, and then it sends an alert to us via text and email, and so we would receive that.
SRP will then share that alert with firefighters and land management teams close to the potential problems. And SRP isn't the only utility company who has wildfire safety on their mind.
We work year-round to mitigate the risk of wildfire.
Wade Ward, fire mitigation specialist with APS, says they clear 10 feet in all directions of utility poles. This prevents wires from sparking fires and poles burning down.
We clear the vegetation in and around our right-of-ways to make sure that it is for safety as well as reliability, of course. We don't want trees falling into the line and causing an outage.
Wildfire preparedness is essential for all Arizonans. Keeping an eye on the forest near and far is one of the best ways to keep us all safe. In Mesa, Jessica Herrera, Cronkite News.
SRP's pilot program is set to launch late this summer. APS works year-round, keeping vegetation clear from equipment poles.
The biggest drought in Arizona in years has caused Lake Mead to drop 26 feet this year alone. But Valeria Rodriguez found out we may need to look to the smaller water sources to get a better understanding of the severity of the drought in the Southwest.
There's no denying water is scarce in Arizona right now, but the large reservoirs aren't the only thing to measure the drought. Spring water is a crucial component of Arizona's ecosystem. For decades, Northern Arizona University professor Abe Springer and his students have been collecting data to better understand what the springs can tell us about the future. They have been looking at this one spring, Hawksworth, for 30 years.
Springs are integrators of all the processes that occur in the underlying aquifers. Hawksworth, along with all the other springs, helps us understand the response of the aquifer to climate, both snowmelt and summer rainfall events.
They have collected data from the Coconino National Forest and the Grand Canyon National Park. Springer says most spring water comes from the snowfall that seeps through the soil to the underground rock layers. They are great indicators of future water flow.
Small upland springs are sentinels that more quickly describe changes to wet or dry phases of climate.
Among other factors, researchers are looking at forest thinning's impact on spring water and the benefits of wildfires.
Low intensity and medium intensity fires have very beneficial responses for runoff and recharge. So where those types of fire intensities happen, they benefit the hydrology.
NAU graduate students' main focus is finding a way to better manage springs because they're so crucial to our environment.
Our efforts are basically trying to get the springs as a separate identity from the general forest management plan.
Because even the smallest trickles of water make a difference in a drought.
Better management of springs is going to be the role. It can be applicable to other semi-arid ecosystems around the country.
In Flagstaff, Valeria Rodriguez, Cronkite News.
The NAU research created from this project supports the For Fry initiative to restore healthy forests in northern Arizona.
High temperatures and persistent drought means national forests and public lands across the state are experiencing extreme fire conditions. Julio Mora Rodriguez heard from members of the National Fire Prevention Team on how the community can keep blazes from igniting in the first place.
The Southwest has seen its fair share of fires this year. Arizona hasn't had quite as many wildfires as other regions. However, fire prevention teams remain on high alert, knowing the next blaze could be at any moment.
I think that we're going to be experiencing a lot more lightning this year throughout the high country. And so I think that that's going to pose problems just if we don't get enough moisture to back it up. So
these firefighters are used to facing flames. To make their job a little easier, they want you to know what you can do to prevent sparks from igniting into fires.
A lot of people think of fuel, putting in gas in their vehicles, but when we think in the wildland environment, we think of fuels as grass. Making sure chains are secure, making sure when they go, make sure they know what the restrictions are out in the forest, no camping, things like that. Making sure that the tires are fully inflated.
With the environment being so dry, activities such as shooting are highly restricted right now. The fire prevention team also advises Arizonans to be careful when driving, not to park in tall grass, as the heat from the car could ignite into a potential fire. As the climate changes, firefighters find themselves battling the flames for longer seasons.
as time changes and as things have been changing, we've been finding ourselves here later and later every year.
During peak months, on average, firefighters will tackle between 4 to 5 wildfires a day. The goal of this demonstration is to make their jobs easier. In Mesa, Julio Mora Rodriguez, Cronkite News.
According to the wildfire education team, half of the wildfires in Arizona are human caused. So until the monsoons come, it's important for Arizona residents to be aware of how they can prevent accidental fires. Arizona has already been hit with more than 10 fire outbreaks this year. Julio Mora Rodriguez spoke with experts from Northern Arizona University about the increasing price in Arizona and how the Southwest will face combating fires.
Researchers at Northern Arizona University are looking at how much wildfires cost and how they impact the Arizona economy. It's not just about fire suppression. Wildfires leave behind debris, charred forests, and flooding. These events cause devastation and increase state spending.
Currently, we're working on projects looking at the losses from flooding and post-wildfire debris flows. This would be one of the indirect costs we're looking at, but then we've got a whole slew of other costs that we could look at.
The state also suffers indirectly. As areas are destroyed, it hurts the state's tourism industry. As a result of this, local communities will face sharp declines in their economies as well.
The whole, I don't think people like coming to see a charred hillside. And I think this gets reflected then in studies that are out there on property values. And it'll be interesting to see if people start looking at what the impacts are on home values. Typically in our area, we see declines in home values associated with wildfires.
A bipartisan bill sponsored by Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Mark Kelly provides $3 billion to fight fires in Arizona and across the country. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Law will invest $61 million directly into Arizona over 10 years. The funds will go to forest restoration in 4 different locations, including Flagstaff and Coconino. Costs related to reforestation are also something states and national governments grapple with. Increased forest density and the dry climate make for the perfect environment for intense wildfires.
If we were to do restoration, fuels treatment, mitigation, if we were to use prescribed fire to reduce the hazard, we also know that creates potential benefits in terms of ecosystem function, water quality and quantity, improved wildlife habitat, improve scenic beauty and cultural values. Those are much harder to put a dollar amount on.
Over the last 20 years, the cost of fire suppression has risen from just over $500 million to more than $2 billion, and these researchers hope to help predict future costs related to wildland fires. Julio Mora Rodriguez, Cronkite News.
Professor Miador also says another factor contributing to the increasing cost of wildfires is the amount of people moving into wooded areas. The more homes that need to be protected, the more firefighting resources needed.
This week, we mark Heat Awareness Week. As temperatures are heating up, it can become dangerous for vulnerable populations. Last year, more than 500 people died due to excessive heat exposure in Arizona. but several groups are coming together to try to help. As temperatures rise, organizations across the valley are doing their part to help those in need. AZ Hug's project of Juice for Justice has gone out into the community since 2020, providing items like spray bottles, meals, and chews to help during these hot months. They are also in the process of turning a minivan into a mobile cooling unit.
We're going to try to drive around and actively find people who can't make it to a designated cooling center. Because one of the big issues I found last year was people in canals and, behind bushes, behind businesses, actively trying to seek out shade, but it's still very lethal. I found a lot of folks who were either dying, dead, or in crisis.
According to the Weather Channel, Phoenix averages about 111 days per year that reach at least 100 degrees. The city of Phoenix, Maricopa County, and St. Vincent de Paul have come together to build a new heat relief shelter that will be operating until October 31st, 2022. They hope to run it year-round through 2024.
Yeah, so St. Vincent de Paul is really the operator, providing hospitality and the wraparound services. So 3 meals a day, we have security, we're connecting people to workforce opportunities.
This shelter can house up to 200 people and will focus on the community around 28th Street and Washington.
So this model of shelter is really a new model we're trying throughout here. We're going to, the priority population is the unsheltered in this surrounding area. It is a closed campus, so it's not a walk-up service. The intakes and engagement is done through outreach and down around the campus to get people to come into the shelter.
Although there are many cooling centers around the valley, there are still ways you can help those in the community to cool off.
Before you leave, in the morning, just grab a couple of frozen water bottles, from your freezer, your fridge, whatever, and give, throughout the day, because that's how we're gonna save lives together this summer.
St. Vincent de Paul welcomes donations of goods, food, and funds. You can learn more by logging on to stvincentdepaul.net.
This month in Passport, your on-demand library of the best of PBS.
Everyone has secrets. Are you protecting someone?
I have no choice.
You do have a choice. You're looking at him.
That's amazing. We could be standing on top of a T-Rex right now.
Women demanded new space and pushed the boundaries of what being a lady means.
These and other shows are available with Passport. Become a member of this PBS station, sign in, and start streaming today.
Much of the state is in an excessive heat warning through Sunday. With temperatures rising, I'm sure we'll all be turning up the AC and running up our energy bills. Rachel Fortunato has some tips to help save money and energy this summer.
It's not uncommon for the average Arizona electric bill to double in the summer. Arizona utility companies have some simple tips to save energy and money. During summer months, ceiling fans should run counterclockwise and can keep you up to 5 degrees cooler. Think about switching to LED light bulbs. They last at least 15 times longer than traditional bulbs and emit 90% less heat. It may sound counterintuitive, but you should turn your thermostats up a few degrees. Every degree can save you up to 3% on cooling costs. If you're heading out for vacation, make sure to turn that thermostat up even more, up to 85 degrees. Finally, in addition to making sure your air conditioner is in good working order, be sure to clean up around the unit. At the Google touchscreen, I'm Rachel Fortunato.
Something we may not think about when visiting national parks or forests is how the land is managed and cared for. The Tonto National Forest is updating their land management practices. The last time it was updated was 1985. Since then, the forest has become one of the most heavily used national forests in the country. Their new management plan focuses on wildlife dangers, recreation, volunteers, and other aspects of the forest that might affect policy.
Cities throughout Arizona work to do their part. I spoke to several city officials to see how Phoenix is preparing.
The Colorado River is one of several sources of water for Arizona. Despite many Arizona cities' efforts to spread water conservation awareness, significant progress to save water has not been made.
We are looking at big, dramatic cuts in Colorado River supplies.
The city of Phoenix, Scottsdale, Chandler, and Mesa have declared Stage 1 water alerts to increase conservation efforts among residents.
It's really important that our customers understand
that really doubling down on their conservation efforts, on their efficiency efforts is really critical. And giving them the tools and the information available to do that is what we're really trying to do at this point.
Last August, Scottsdale asked residents to use 5% less water, but only managed to meet the target goal halfway since May of this year. So far, Valley cities have not issued sanctions to residents, and private water providers have not increased rates for customers.
It's great that the city has reduced its own water demand so much, but that doesn't go very far, right? When the residents aren't also reducing their water use.
As the drought continues, residents could see changes up ahead.
Stage 2 in our drought management plan opens the possibility of a drought surcharge. It's not something that we are considering today, but it is a tool in the toolbox that's available to us. So it's possible.
One way to help is to reduce water consumption outside of the home. Fixing a leaky irrigation system and switching to an Arizona-friendly landscape are options.
What we'll see naturally is, even though that small amounts in the house, as we add that up over our 1.7 million customers, that will add up. You know, we have about 430,000 accounts, and so if everybody used a little bit less, we would see a significant amount of savings.
Municipal water conservation, super important to help our cities, our providers have enough water to deliver to the customers in the service area, but that won't address this big issue of shortage on the Colorado River, which is a long-term issue.
And while every little bit helps, Arizonans are encouraged to make permanent changes.
Monsoon season is on its way to Arizona, and local Tempe officials spoke this morning about what residents can do to keep themselves and others safe from the dangerous weather. Luke Chatham tells us what those protective measures look like.
Dramatic Flagstaff flooding from last year reminds us it's more important than ever to stay safe from the coming monsoon.
We would like the roads to be safe and clear.
Tempe officials have specific tips to deal with monsoon storms. The fire department says to check the weather before driving and to follow strict instructions if caught in storms.
Safest bet is to pull off the side of the road in a parking lot if one is available. If not, if you can pull to the far right side of the road, turn your car off, turn your lights off.
Heavy winds can damage trees and loose equipment. Residents should secure things like backyard furniture and inspect their trees.
Look for broken or dead branches, or maybe any structural defects that might be there. And if you have, overextended branches or something that's touching your roof or your outbuildings, maybe you want to get those pruned back or perhaps removed.
Along with winds, monsoons bring flooding. Tempe provides 2 locations where residents can fill up sandbags.
I recommend you bring a helper, gloves, safety goggles, and what you'll do is you'll fill your sandbag half to 2/3 full, tie it off and use it. You want to have a little bit of give, so when you stack it, it forms nicely.
The sand and bags are free, but officials ask residents to only take as many as they think they may need. In Tempe, Luke Chatham, Cronkite News.
Tempe officials also asked residents to keep the gutters free of litter, and if storm drains need to be cleaned, to reach out to the city.
But as we head in throughout the rest of July, opportunity to play Fantasy Monsoon game, which will allow you to even win some Amazon gift cards. 5 cities across the Southwest in the game of Fantasy Monsoon. Let's pick Phoenix for August. The mean and median right about 1. Slide it up, we'll say a little bit more than that for August. Say 1 1/4 inches. Scroll to the bottom of the screen, click submit, and Phoenix is submitted for August.
One of the reasons we did this was to engage the public and engage new audiences.
The Southwest Fantasy Monsoon Forecasts was designed to tap in to the craze around the monsoon phenomenon.
The monsoon's one of those features, I think, that really creates an identity here in the Southwest. It's unique to the U.S. People rally around it. There's general interest in it.
Think of the game like sports betting, but for the casual weather person. Emily Stolz beat out nearly 300 competitors last year. She describes herself as a novice in weather and moved to Arizona from Michigan last year.
I had no preconceived notions of whether or not this was an unusual summer or it was a really dry summer. It was really easy for me to just make guesses based on the graphs that I was looking at.
In addition to Phoenix, the participants make picks for Tucson, Flagstaff, Albuquerque, and El Paso. The closer you are to the actual rainfall amount, the higher your score will be. The top 3 winners this year will receive Amazon gift cards. Each month, the picks must be submitted by 11:59 on the last day of the preceding month. At the Google touchscreen, Ian Sachs, Cronkite News.
Monsoon season wraps up at the end of September, so there's still time to participate for the final 2 months of this year's game.
The rising costs of materials and supply chain issues have caused companies and organizations to think outside the box when it comes to building homes. Cronkite News reporter Jessica Herrera tells us how builders are using alternative materials and new technology on construction sites.
Using foam to build a house sounds surprising, but one local building design company decided to suspend the use of wood altogether.
3-layered composite consisting of sapscrete, foam, and sapscrete. All 3 layers combined create this nanotechnology which creates superior power and structural strength.
The foam is pre-cut and put together, reducing on-site labor costs, and the construction time frame is a lot faster.
You're not looking at creating any type of extra material that goes into it. So it's just foam on foam, and then you apply sapscrete when the structure is completed to give that structural cementatious coating to it.
The soft core acts as insulation, while the outer layer adds strength and stability to the frame.
It's like living in an igloo.
Ken Skinner, an experienced home builder, says constructing this foam house has its learning curves, but he looks forward to saving energy costs.
It's at least 20 to 30 degrees cooler on the inside surface than it is the outside surface. So that's going to make a huge difference.
The current state of the housing market and developing technology are motivating companies and organizations to rethink the traditional ways to build homes.
It opens a whole world of design flexibility as well as material savings into it, and therefore by extension cost savings as well. So that's where the attraction is.
New technology isn't just for high-end homeowners.
This could be a worthwhile technology for low-income housing as well as for affordable housing to mitigate homelessness.
Nonprofit organizations like Habitat for Humanity say they are already using innovative technologies such as 3D printers to address the acute housing shortage.
Everybody needs a place to call home, and we're going to have to make it more sustainable, which was one of our goals with this home: more affordable, more efficient, more sustainable. We've got to get to a place where we can bring the costs down, and we think technologies like this will allow that to happen.
Everyone agrees no matter how it's made, the ultimate goal is to make a house a home. In Phoenix, Jessica Herrera, Cronkite News.
According to the National Association of Homebuilders, the price of building materials are up by more than 19% and have risen 35% since the start of the pandemic.
In the early 1980s, there were fewer than 25 California condors in the world. The remaining birds were brought into captivity as part of the California Condor Recovery Program in hopes of preserving the critically endangered species. Cronkite News reporter Joey Vaca tells us how the big birds are doing under this protection program.
When Michael Clark started as a condor keeper at the LA Zoo in 1989, the bird's population was in the 30s. Now, with a population of over 500 individuals in captivity and the wild, some call the California condor a conservation success story.
I guess you could say we've saved it from long-term extinction because we have a captive protected population that can produce more birds.
The work is far from over. Over the years, the focus has shifted from captive breeding to wild releases, and not just in California.
We're talking about more release sites in other states where condor, evidence has been found, fossil evidence and stuff like that.
Part of the condor's natural habitat extends into northern Arizona and southern Utah. And as the Arizona Game and Fish Department's Condor Program Coordinator Austin Teague points out, State 48 is just as good a habitat now as ever before.
That area up there where they're released is very remote, has good cliff faces for nesting, and also has large populations of deer and for for food.
But even with numbers rising, Clark points out that the condors aren't out of the woods yet.
If you want to talk about the real story of what's going on and why it's not like as rosy as it could be, you have to talk about what's holding us back.
Poisoning from lead ammunition and animal carcasses poses a major threat to the condors. So much so that if today's captive breeding efforts were to stop, the species would go extinct in 20 years. With the push against lead ammunition stronger than ever before, Clark and his fellow keeper of nearly 30 years hope that someday soon, the population can thrive without the looming threat of poison.
I want to just be driving home from work and see condors independently of my work.
Yeah.
You know, drive home and I'm going, hey, check it out. There's some birds.
There's a bird. No tag.
Remember when we used to work with those?
In Los Angeles, Joey Vaca, Cronkite News.
David and Clark said right now 50% of known condor mortality is caused by lead poisoning. Here in Arizona, the Arizona Game and Fish Department is active in promoting non-lead ammunition for hunters.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. And for top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.